President Trump has declared that peace in the Middle East is beyond very close as he presented a new plan to end the war in Gaza in the presence of the Israeli Prime Minister. Benjamin Netanyahu said he supported the scheme, with both men saying Hamas must also do so, or Israel would finish its offensive. Hamas says it's studying the plan which demands it disarms and stops governing Gaza, and this may be hard to accept. The deal envisages governance being taken up by a committee of Palestinian technocrats, supervised by an international body headed by Mr. Trump, and later a possible Palestinian state. 8 Arab and Muslim nations have also jointly welcomed the proposal, as has Britain, France, Italy and the European Union. Our North America correspondent Peter Bowes reports.
President Trump, are you confident, sir, there'll be peace in Gaza anytime soon?
I am. Very confident.
There was no hiding President Trump's excitement, a potential breakthrough in the long elusive search for peace in Gaza.
So this is a big day, a beautiful day, potentially one of the great days ever in civilization.
I believe that today we're taking a critical step towards both ending the war in Gaza and setting the stage for dramatically advancing peace in the Middle East. And I think beyond the Middle East, in very important Muslim countries.
Benjamin Netanyahu on board and seemingly equally optimistic. The two leaders said they'd agreed on a 20-point plan for a ceasefire, an exchange of hostages held by Hamas in return for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, a staged Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, a transitional administration led by an international body, and the disarmament of Hamas. President Trump said it could herald a new chapter of security, peace and prosperity for the entire region, possibly for eternity. The proposed transitional government in Gaza would be led by an international body called the Board of Peace, chaired by the US President and with other global statesmen involved.
One of the people that wants to be on the board is the UK former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, good man, very good man, and some others.
Sir Tony said the proposal was a bold and intelligent plan, which, if agreed, could end the war and bring immediate relief to Gaza. Benjamin Netanyahu said it would ensure that Gaza never again posed a threat to Israel. But the Prime Minister appeared to distance himself from some aspects of the plan, adding that Israel would retain security responsibility in Gaza after the war and would finish the job against Hamas should it reject Mr. Trump's proposals.
I have a feeling that we're going to have a positive answer. But if not, as you know, Bibi, you'd have our full backing to do what you would have to do.
In a statement, Sir Keir Starmer said President Trump's plan to end the Gaza war was profoundly welcome. We strongly support his efforts to end the fighting, release the hostages and ensure the provision of urgent humanitarian assistance for the people of Gaza. This is our top priority and should happen immediately.
Thank you very much, everybody.
The agreement leaves open the possibility of an eventual Palestinian state, a potential sticking point for Israel. But it marks a significant stepping up of diplomatic efforts by the Trump administration to end the war in Gaza.
And Peter told me there was such optimism for the plan, it would have put huge pressure on Hamas to accept it.
This is a very significant plan, a multi-point plan. Some of those points and some of those asks of Hamas may, through some people's eyes, seem very difficult to achieve, like the demand that Hamas lay down its arms. We've had no indication from Hamas that that is something that they are likely to agree to. But I think the point here is that the international reaction to this has been so broadly positive, with some caveats, but broadly speaking positive. It is going to put pressure on Hamas like perhaps they've never been under pressure before in terms of reaching an agreement, an eventual agreement with Israel. So while I think some people might see this as overreaching in terms of some of the demands that are potentially possible, it is perhaps the best possibility that we've seen at peace since this war started.
And in a moment I'll be discussing the view from the Arab world, what Hamas is likely to say in terms of reaction. But just from you, Peter, some of the points in this plan are different, aren't they, to what was proposed previously by these two leaders when they've come up with other ideas, i.e., the Riviera of the Middle East, which we've heard of previously. But there was, in this plan, they're not talking about the removal of Palestinians from Gaza. They can stay and choose to stay and rebuild their lives there.
Right, absolutely, and that is key. That I think is central to this, and it is a tacit acknowledgement, I think, by President Trump and his negotiators and his team that plan that was so talked about at the time, but widely criticised around the world, Riviera of the Middle East, and a whole new concept with Palestinians moving, it seemed, forcibly removed from their homeland. That has gone, and that isn't part of this proposal now. And indeed, there is the inclusion that Palestinians can stay in Gaza, and that is an entirely different ballgame to what we were talking about before. And I think that is central to this, and I think that is why it has received broadly a positive reaction, that it is perhaps, even though some of the demands of Hamas are still very strong demands, that overall it's seen as a more realistic proposal.
Peter Bowes there, but what is the view on each side, in Israel and in Gaza, of the prospect of this possible peace deal and an end to the war? The BBC and other international broadcasters are prevented by the Israelis from reporting inside Gaza and instead rely on trusted freelance journalists. Lucy Williamson reports from Jerusalem.
The message from Israel's army to Gaza City this morning: we're coming. Leaflets warning residents to evacuate dropped on its streets as tanks advanced on the city's central government district. The battle against Hamas will not stop until it's defeated, they read. Donald Trump's promise of a deal barely landing here at all. But Atiyah Shamala was one of those hoping for it, though it came too late to save his brother or his house.
The proposal is good. We support anything that stops the bloodshed. We support anything that saves lives. And we support Arab forces coming here to the Gaza Strip to organize our internal affairs.
Israel's Prime Minister has repeatedly vowed to finish Hamas. Today, sounding deflated beside Donald Trump, he agreed to end the war.
But if Hamas rejects your plan, Mr. President, or if they supposedly accept it and then basically do everything to counter it, then Israel will finish the job by itself. This can be done the easy way, or it can be done the hard way.
But ending a war in Washington risks opening a new political front at home. Israeli protesters have long called for a deal to free the hostages, while the Prime Minister's coalition allies have threatened to leave if there's any talk of a Palestinian state. Tonight, one opposition leader told Mr. Netanyahu to ignore what he called the threats of extremists in his government, saying he had the support of the public and the parliament. In Gaza tonight, the war isn't over. Hamas has still to respond. Netanyahu is watching to see if this deal is finished before it begins.
So what is the likely response from Hamas? Ayar Saeed Shahata from BBC Arabic.
It's unlikely that Hamas will accept this plan for several reasons. First, Hamas conditioned several times before that it can release all hostages at once as far as the Israeli army will withdraw fully from Gaza. And this is not in the plan. In the plan, the link between the withdrawal, gradual withdrawal, with the disarming Hamas. So there's no relation between freeing hostages and the full withdrawal of the Israeli army from Gaza. So in this case, one of the main demands of Hamas is not there. The other reason is disarming Hamas. And Hamas said before, they are not going to lay down their weapons until a Palestinian state is established, because he said it's a resistance movement, and the whole goal of the resistance movement to establish a Palestinian state. So this second demand is not there also in that, even if the plan mentioning opening the door for a Palestinian state, but there is no commitment and detailed roadmap for establishing a Palestinian state. On the top of that, most of the Hamas fighters are underground. So they lost only about 10,000, according to some reports, of like more than 65,000 were killed since 7th of October. On the top of that, there is the Secretary General of the Islamic Jihad in Palestine movement, Ziad al-Nakhala, and this group participated with Hamas in the attack in 7th of October, said this plan is a recipe for blowing up the region. It is, Israel will use it to impose what it couldn't do over 2 years during the war. So all of these indicators, and even some people from inside Gaza said they are suspicious about this to happen. They don't trust this to achieve the end of the war. So all of these reasons come together to explain the most likely that Hamas will not accept, unfortunately, this plan.
Saeed Shahata there.